Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Kenny, and this is Uncensored Season 1, and this episode is about Nia Long. I will have to go to say that Nia Long has to be one of my favorite actresses. I've been following her for years. I definitely remember when she was on God and Light when she was in her teens, and I've literally been following her career since then. I'm a huge fan of hers, and in this episode you really get to understand who Nia Long is and how she is as a personality. And pretty much she talks about, like, one thing that she embraces the most is her authenticity. She says, I would be like the girl that would get on her hoodie in the middle of the night, like, let one of my friends call me and say something go down. Or I'm there with my hoodie on and I'm ready to see what's up. She says that's how I am, famous or otherwise. She's that kind of girl that she's gonna say what she means and means what she says, and she's not gonna backpedal by no means. Um, and pretty much, she said that the main thing that made her become an actress was not because she wanted to be famous, but because she wanted to help her mother. And she talks about her upbringing. She was born in 1970. This was during the time of the rise of the Black Panther Party and Afro. Everybody was sporting afros, and she pretty much was born in Iowa, and she pretty much was like the only black girl. She's been called a nigger, and she pretty much grew up in a very racially charged environment. And here it is. She said that the school she went to, she was like the only black girl out of 250 kids. She was the only black kid, but her mother, who pretty much is an authentic woman in her own right, who has a high sense of self-worth and has a sense of superiority. She instilled that in Nia. She said that she would actually, like, when she was a little girl, her mother would literally dress up her afro and tie a bow around it, saying that you should represent who you are and should be proud of who you are because you're beautiful. So she was learning these principles early on as, when she kind of grew up in a racially charged environment, that even though she was teased and she was taunted and she was made fun of, her mother affirmed her that she's beautiful regardless of what people say, and that, be proud of who you are and always represent who you are. So she got that at an early age. And pretty much her mother, one of the things her mother told her is that, be yourself, because the world's going to judge you enough. So why judge yourself, or why try to live your life trying to fit in other people's fantasies? You should just be your authentic self. So she learned that at an early age, and we can definitely see that, in Nia, that Nia is not the type of person that's gonna bend some kind of way just because of how you feel. She's gonna give it to you straight, and you can just give the vibe off of Nia Long that that's just how she is. And probably why some people in Hollywood may not take to her, because she's not that kind of person that's gonna, she's not the type of person she's not in it to play games. She's in it to be real. And on top of it, she's a person who loves who she is as a black woman, and she embraces that. And she even says that, black women are, as, what the word did she say? I actually written it down. Oh, she said that black women are beautifully complicated. Because there's so many different dimensions of black women. They're not just one stereotype. And, she even talks about how her mother struggled, and, how they ended up moving to LA was that her mother was supposed to be getting married, but that didn't work out, so it was just her and her mom. And, they loved LA. They definitely loved, I think, like, her grandmother, I think, is Trinidadian, I recall, but if I'm wrong, correct me. So she definitely got that island blood in her. So they definitely loved it. They definitely loved, the tropic environment that California brings. So they stayed, and and the one thing I thought was crazy though is that her mother had a master's degree, had all this education, but could not find a job. And it's kind of typical of what's going on now. And she went to go apply for food stamps and for welfare assistance, and they told her that she was overqualified. And she was like, well, no one's hiring me. I mean, I got to do something to help feed my kids. This is only just temporary until I can find something. Well, they pretty much offer her a job. Either she can, drive a bus or construction, and she ended up driving the bus. And, and she said that every day her mother, like every other day, her mother would come in crying because it was more like, okay, here it is, I'm driving this bus, and she was working in the Pasadena area, and it was like, okay, here it is, I'm driving this bus, but yet, I could have gotten a job right there. I could have gotten a job at this place, but they wouldn't hire me, and a lot of it had to do with probably because she was black, and and the fact that she and yeah, pretty much like a lot of jobs racially profile people. So I'm thinking that may have played the reason. And the thing about it's true even now that a lot of people who who get a college education and they get a degree but can't even find a job in their field. And pretty much she said that her and her mom have like this interesting connection. It's like they're best friends. They don't have like this typical mother and daughter relationship. So they were open and honest with each other. They were transparent with one another. And we see that Nia really loves her mother, and there was moments where she got emotional. There was moments where she got emotional, but she really showed that she had her mother's back. And she said, a lot of who I am is because of my mother, because my mother definitely was my inspiration to be the best me that I can be. So when she actually sat down and talked to her mother, and her mother talked about how she only made $17,000 a year, and she said her main fire, her main passion, the main desire that drove her to be who she is today was to help her mom. It wasn't to be famous. It wasn't just about the money. It was about helping her mother get to a place where she didn't have to struggle anymore. And I literally take off my hat because my family is the reason why I do what I do and why I'm trying to, make it as an artist in my own right. Because, my whole thing is that I'm trying to create a better life for my family as well, and that's my main desire. So I definitely relate to Noah with that. I definitely relate to Nia with that, and I thought that was very special. And she says that her mom is very innovative. Like her mom has, tattoos on her face, and it was the same tattoos that she actually put on Lawrence Fishburne's face when he was in Othello. That was her mother who did those tattoos. So I was just like, wow. And she said that, yeah, you have to define yourself. You have to, you have to be your authentic self. And and that was the main theme of who she is as a person. She just stayed to who she was, and she was not going to change and she was never going to change herself. And I applaud her for that. And it was also in high school that she ends up, getting an audition in New York for Guiding Light. And she says she hates auditions and she hates that part of the business because it's like you're constantly looking for them to accept you. Where it's like, okay, if you don't want me for the role, fine, but why do I feel like I have to constantly put myself up on like an auction block and make you like me, that you will accept me? And she was saying that, that whole part of the business she hates, the whole audition process, because it's like you have to constantly redefine who you are. And she says it's disturbing, that's the disturbing part of the business. But she said that, you know, she actually got the role in Guiding Light, and even though I don't watch the stories, my mother does, and I remember as a child seeing Nia Long on Guiding Light, and I remember there were like articles and stuff about her. So, and she even struck me then, like I just knew I was gonna see more of this girl, because she just had, you know, a type of fire and a type of delivery that you didn't forget who she was. Like, you definitely saw her in Guiding Light. You definitely remembered her. And I definitely remembered Nia Long, even though I didn't watch Guiding Light. I remember her being on Guiding Light, and I remember seeing certain scenes with her in it, and she grabbed me then. And she even talks about, you know, when, you know, she's saying that, you know, there's a lot of doors that are being broken down for colored, for, you know, for black women, you know, women of color, women with kinky hair, they're now, you know, being celebrated. But then she talks about when she first got into the industry, it wasn't that at all. And I have to admit, Nia Long was one of those women who helped break down those doors for other black actresses. Because she said that there was just only a handful of them. You know, it was her, Jada Pinkett, Halle Berry, Regina King, Jasmine Guy, you know, and they all were all up for the same roles. And, you know, and she said that she was constantly being, you know, picked apart, you know, as far as colorism, because colorism was very big in Hollywood then. It still is now, but we've seen that there's been a change, and there is a revolution that's happening in Hollywood, you know, as far as the rise of, you know, black artists and also, you know, chocolate skin, you know, shout out to Black Panther. Okay, so we're saying that there is a revolution going on, but she talks about when she first started how, you know, it was like, you know, the ethnic girl, or, you know, she's too dark, or she's too light, or, you know, her eyebrows are funny. And she said people would tell her this stuff, and she's like, what the hell does that even mean? You know, it's like, she pretty much said that it was really hard for black women to get, you know, mainstream roles at that time, and it was really hard for them to make breakthroughs, you know, in Hollywood, because so much colorism and stereotyping was going on. They only wanted you for this thing, and they didn't want you for anything else. And she pretty much says that, look, you know, she talks being a black woman is powerful and real, and she says, I keep it real, and I won't compromise myself. So that lets you know right there. She says, and yeah, if I win or I lose with it, it is what it is, but I know that I'm paving the way for other black girls that are coming after me. All I can do is take my hat off to her for that, because that is very powerful, and it's very moving, that fact that she's just not in it for herself. She knows the role she plays, she knows the platform she has, and she knows that she has a responsibility. And that, you know, at the end of the day, it's not just about her. She knows that there's young girls who are looking at her, and she wants to be an example for them. But then she talks about her big break is when she played Brandy in Boys in the Hood. I mean, definitely, that was definitely one of my favorite movies of all time. I remember I first saw Boys in the Hood. I think when it came out, I was like around 7 or 8 years old. I actually snuck and watched it because my mother wouldn't let me watch it at the time because I was too young. But I knew old girl Nia Long from Guiding Light was in it. I knew Ice Cube was in it because I was definitely a fan of Ice Cube. So I definitely wanted to see the movie, and I did. And then it was after a while that, you know, I started quoting some of the movies that my mother knew I watched. Oh my God, I kind of chuckle when I think about that. But then she actually talks about the experience making the movie, about working with John Singleton. At the time, they were all pretty much, you know, very new, you know, to the game. Some of them only had like $9.50 in their pocket, but here they were making this movie. And this movie not only grossed millions, but then it was even nominated for an Academy Award. You know, and she even said when she first met John, she said that the day of the audition she wasn't feeling well, so she went with a hoodie and a cap and everything, and she saw this guy in dark glasses, and she had sat next to him, and he was like, "How you doing?" He's like, "Hey, how are you?" She's like, and she was like, "Well, who are you anyway?" He was like, "Oh, I'm John. I'm the director." She's like, "Oh," and that's how they first met. And she actually talks about that John was such a great director. He, we connected very well. I learned a lot from him, and who knew that this movie was going to become a game changer? And it was. It was a major game changer, as far as as far as black film. And she said from that point on, she was getting known, and guys were giving her gifts and all of that, and and then she said that she was hearing her names in rap songs, and her son was talking about, the latest person that put her name in a rap song was 21 Savage, and he was saying that, it just goes to show that my mom has stood the test of time, that even now people still mentioning Nia Long, because Nia Long is that black beauty that never fades, man, and she just gets better with age. I mean, she's aging like vintage wine. She's 47 and still looks like she's in her 20s. I mean, black is beautiful. And she also talks about this, when she first met Chris Rock. Chris Rock and her are good friends now, but when they first met, they were kind of set on a blind date, and at the time he was on SNL, she said that they hated each other, and she was like, I don't even think this guy is even effing funny. And she said that he was also the first guy to give her a false number, but then they showed him on a talk show, and they were kind of laughing about it, going back and forth, so they're great friends, now, but when they first met, they couldn't stand each other, which is hilarious. And then, I remember when she played Lisa on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, that definitely, that actually was a big launch in her career too, because she said that, she was being exposed to a much broader audience, because everybody watched the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, blacks, whites, it was a multicultural audience that loved, the show, because it was a family show. And she also talks about working with Will Smith and how he was such a great teacher, and that he lives by his own rules, and that he's a man that's innovative. And she said she never saw a black man that really represented that until she met Will Smith. And then they also worked together in the movie Made in America, which I love that movie. Oh my goodness. Yo, I used to watch that movie a lot growing up. With her, it was Whoopi Goldberg, Ted Danson. At the time, Whoopi Goldberg and Ted Danson were a couple, and Nia Long and Will Smith. And Nia Long played her daughter. And she also talks about Whoopi, and that she's Whoopi has been like a really great friend and confidant, that Whoopi taught her about gardenias. She gave her Chanel No. 5, and Whoopi is funny, she's charismatic, but one thing Whoopi does not tolerate is nonsense. So, love you, Whoopi. So yeah, her and Whoopi are still cool to this day as well. And then she also talks about being the cover girl of Essence. She's been on so many different covers because she represents black essence. She represents black beauty. And she even says that she's honored, that Essence has showcased her so many times. And then she also talks about the movie Love Jones, another favorite film of mine, with her and Lorenz Tate. And Lorenz Tate and her, she said they had like similar upbringings, even though Lorenz Tate is from Chicago. They kind of were like kindred spirits, and they had great chemistry. And I have to agree with that, because it completely came off on film. It's like it made you wonder, were these two really together for real? Because the passion and the connection between the two of them was just so mind blowing. and it literally catches your eye when you watch that movie. You just see the chemistry that the two of them had that was just natural, and it really worked for their characters. And she even says that each character she played represents some of who she is as a woman. That there's a part of her in every character, and that's really groundbreaking as well. And then she also talks about doing The Best Man, a film that she won Best Actress at the NAACP Image Awards for. I remember watching that, and I even saw Best Man in the movie theater. And they talk about one of my favorite scenes in this movie when she smacked the dog shit out of Tay Diggs in that scene where he comes to her house after he got beat up by Lance, and the secret's out about his book, and he kind of goes off on her and saying, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have got my ass whooped. So he kind of like takes it out on her, and then the next thing you know, she gets so mad that she literally mushes the hell out of him. And then the director Malcolm Lee was like, when he did that, woo, like he was hurting for real. Like that hit was for real. She hit him so hard. And later on, he had said that, girl, you hit the hell out of me. I was in physical pain the entire day because of that shit. And she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But hey, sometimes when you're caught into that moment and you're caught into the role, yeah, things could happen. I mean, hey, for example, and what's that got to do with it when, Lawrence Fishburne slapped Vanessa Bell Calloway? He slapped her for real, and she gave her real reaction, which made it a better scene. And it was the same thing here. When she hit Tay Diggs, she really hit him hard. So yeah, that was pretty awesome. And then she also talks about, her new role on NCIS with Chris O'Donnell and LL Cool J. And she was saying at first she didn't want to do procedural television and that she was against it. But then she was saying, but that was kind of like the old Hollywood thing, like, if you do television, you're not considered a legitimate actress, because that was the thing back in the day, that if you did television, you would never get in the movies ever again. TV was kind of like going downward. But she says that now we're all doing everything, and there's nothing wrong with doing television. Television is actually groundbreaking for a lot of artists, because they don't have to travel far to go to work. They can it gives them more time to be there with their families. It gives them more time to have somewhat of a normal life, but yet still be able to work. So a lot of, and if anything, as I said, television has had a revolution, and it's kind of, created a platform for people like myself who like to review these TV shows, because they're giving us so much to work with, to the point that even people like me who watch these shows, I gotta talk about it, and I like sharing it with you guys, because, I'm pretty sure you guys have some of the same reactions or commentary as me, and some of it may be different, but that's the fun about being like a commentator and a reviewer, is because you see some of the greatest scenes, and you get to talk about it on YouTube. I mean, it's just fun, and I love what I do, and I love doing this. So, and she talks about being a mother. Her son Masai was actually commenting. He pretty much says that she's a no-nonsense mother, but she's very kind and she's very genuine. But she don't take no shit. No, but he didn't say that. He didn't say shit, but he said that she don't take no mess. So, and we definitely saw him. He played her son in the movie Single Wives Club. Single Moms Club. I'm sorry, not Single Wives Club. Oh, my bad. So yeah, and she talks about her boyfriend that she's been with for 8 years. He's the assistant coach for the San Antonio Spurs, and they have a really great relationship. and they don't lose who they are in the relationship, which is very profound and very important. And pretty much she actually says that her name, Nia, means purpose. And long, she thinks, she says, I guess long means for longevity, because I've had a long 30-year career and I'm not going anywhere. You know, I got more to do. So I definitely salute Nia Long. This was a great episode, and I enjoyed every minute of it. So that's what I have. If I missed anything, put it down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. But subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you get notifications every time I drop a video. Also, follow me on my social, on all of my social links. You will find them in the description box. Also, like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And I will be back with the next episode of Uncensored. So until next time, everybody, take care.